What is going on, everybody? Welcome in. It's the Fantasy Alarm live stream, Fantasy Alarm Sports Talk. I'm your host, Howard Bender. With me here, of course, Adam Ronis. Adam, you and I were on that NFL Draft live stream marathon last night. How you feeling today? You know what? I think I know how you're feeling today. I mean, you're Cowboys. What? There are a lot of really happy Cowboy fans out there, and then there are a lot of kind of a little upset by it, thinking that they didn't address team needs. But how are you feeling from a fan perspective?
Well, as you know, on that live stream, once I saw the 49ers pass on wide receiver, I brought it up immediately and I said, you know what? The Cowboys might take CeeDee Lamb. And a lot of people were like, well, they need defense. And I thought the same thing. But it's a case of, and sometimes this happens as fantasy too, the Cowboys just went with the best player on the board. They said they had CeeDee Lamb 6th overall on their board. They had no idea he was going to be there. They only spoke with him one time. And I don't think anyone thought CeeDee Lamb would be there for Dallas. So I think they were intent on going defense. And then when they saw how it developed, I mean, again, once San Francisco passed at 14, we knew Judy was going to Denver. They were very high on him. We knew Atlanta was not taking a wide receiver. And it was pretty much, they said, all right, we're going to take the best player on the board. Yes, they have defensive needs, but they're just going to roll with a potent offense. So I understand the logic, and I'm okay with it. Now, obviously, they have to address the defense the rest of the way, but now you just have an explosive offense. I believe also, they did sign Amari Cooper to this 5-year, $100 million deal, but I believe none of the money's guaranteed after 2021. Gallup has 2 more years before his contract comes up. So, I mean, Lamb is just phenomenal. I mean, we've talked about it on the live stream. He was my number 1 ranked wide receiver. He's just so good after the catch. He makes contested plays. He's just dynamic. So I understand why Dallas did it. Pretty much up until that point of the draft, everyone draft based on needs. And Dallas clearly does have some needs on defense, but, maybe they're trying to go the Kansas City route and say, hey, we're just going to have an explosive offense, try and stop us, and we hope our defense does enough. But they still have day 2 and day 3 to address the defense, and I would think they go with a cornerback in this round 2.
Yeah, there are a number of guys who actually slipped through. I mean, just from a defensive standpoint, I take a look at the list of guys who kind of fell out. Xavier McKinney, the safety out of Alabama, he dropped. Christian Fulton out of LSU. Grant Delpit from LSU as well. So, I mean, when you look at that position there, yeah, it really – we thought guys like McKinney were going to go in that first round. So I do feel like Dallas can do that. And I mean, listen, there was that point in the draft yesterday as well. I mean, that I'm just taking a look right here. It was right after, leave it to the Raiders, man, right? Like the Raiders take Henry Ruggs, throw everybody into a tailspin. Tampa Bay trades up because Wirfs is still there. San Francisco takes Kinlaw because, again, that's best player available as opposed to need. It's also a pretty deep wide receiver class as well. So, I mean, a number of guys are still available there that, listen, I think it made sense from if you're taking best player available from, that standpoint there. And I mean, listen, CeeDee Lamb, I'm very much anticipating a heavy Cowboys conversation with Jim Bowden today, who is
generally in fantasy. In fantasy, what's your philosophy for the first 5-6 rounds? Do you take best player available? Like, when do you start going, I have a need? I mean, don't you generally do best player available for football in the first 5-6 rounds?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, yes, so I do. I think that's what Dallas did. And I can't dispute it, man. And especially if Lamb turns out to be the player we thought. I mean, this offense is just going to be dynamic, and it was already good to begin with. So it's hard to argue with what they did.
Well, let's talk about the fantasy ramifications of Dallas right now. We tried to touch on this a little bit during last night's live stream, which you guys can all find. Just go to our YouTube page, type Fantasy Alarm into the search. You got over 4 hours worth of live stream coverage there about it. But, when you look at the offense and it's explosive, sure, Dak Prescott, Mike Fabiano said that he, with the addition of CeeDee Lamb, that he's bumping Dak up to his third most productive quarterback. But when you're starting to draft and you're drafting guys like Lamb, Cooper, Blake Jarwin we talked about, Michael Gallup, and even Zeke to a certain extent. Like, does it become, a situation where you've got too many mouths to feed, and while there are some top elite names on on that roster, where's the lean on targets going to go? Who's going to, are we going to see a drop in fantasy value for these guys because of the way the offense is now structured?
Slight with the receivers, remember Randall Cobb was there last year. He had over 800 receiving yards. So that opens up, Witten didn't do much, Jarwin's there. So look, for a fantasy perspective, it hurts CeeDee Lamb. There's no question about it. He would have, any other spot, he probably would have been, ranked first, second, or receiver. I mean, right now, he's probably fifth or sixth of the wide receivers that went. I mean, it's just not an ideal position for fantasy. Cooper is going to get his targets. He's probably going to move to the slot a little bit more, which is going to benefit him. I mean, you could see Lamb in the slot a little bit too, but Cooper, has shown a tendency at times to struggle against the elite corners. Gallup, I'll drop a little bit. I mean, I was really high on Gallup before this. Like, I thought he was undervalued where he was going. Because he averaged more yards per game and more targets per game than Amari Cooper last year. I mean, he was sixth in yards per game at the wide receiver position. I don't think a lot of people realize that. So he was really coming along. So maybe he goes down a little bit. Cooper probably might have been in that wide receiver 1 range. You bump him down to wide receiver 2, high on wide receiver 2. But yeah, Lamb, it hurts Lamb because I think, he's, to me, again, him and Judy, clearly the 2 best receivers in this draft. But Lamb just didn't land in an ideal fantasy spot, at least for this year.
And that was one of the things that we talked about. And I'll circle back around. I want to at least just start at the top of this draft and everything that went down. Because, for those first 6-7 picks, this was pretty chalky in comparison to the level of excitement and the gamesmanship and the rumors that were blowing up there. Burrow goes first, Chase Young second. Detroit doesn't trade out. Did Detroit make a mistake not trading out of that spot? I mean, from a football standpoint, not even a fantasy standpoint, from a football standpoint, it's like, okay, no Slay, but now we've got Okudah. I mean, I'm not going to say that Slay is better than – I think Slay is better than Okudah as a seasoned player. Okudah's got phenomenal skills, but it almost feels like a lateral move for Detroit.
Well, I mean, they probably tried to trade it, just couldn't get anyone to meet their price. I mean, again, I think there was a lot of smoke screens being sent out because I felt the whole time Miami was taking Tua. I think we discussed it a few days ago. I just didn't believe any of it. And, they didn't have to trade up to get him. He landed in their lap. And they knew if no one was going to trade up, they knew they were going to have their choice of which quarterback they wanted. So I'm not surprised that it went the way that it did. We say this every single year, all these rumors leading up to the draft and especially draft week, a lot of times it does not pan out. It's so many agents and teams throwing things out there, trying to stir up interest, which we all understand. But I mean, it just went according to plan, those first 7-8 picks. And we knew it was really going to start once. What were the Jets going to do? Were the Jets going to take a wide receiver? Would they go offensive line? And then we knew, okay, now the wide receivers are going to go, but it just went in a direction that we didn't expect as far as order.
Yeah, you look at the way it went, Okudah, Andrew Thomas. A lot of people surprised that the Giants went Thomas instead of Wirfs. I actually kind of like Thomas a little bit more. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I don't evaluate offensive linemen better than most. I don't know. But I thought that Thomas was actually – because he was the guy that I was like, well, if he slips to the Jets, I'd be pretty psyched about that for them to grab him. So then Tua and Herbert come off the board. Now, obviously, Tua's going to be playing behind Fitzpatrick. Herbert's going to be playing behind Tyrod Taylor. Which one emerges first as a starting quarterback this year?
Good question. Probably Tua, but I mean, I know they've been pretty committal on Taylor, but that was before they drafted Herbert. So probably Tua, but I could see both these guys not playing much this year, especially if training camp gets cut short. We already know OTAs, mini camps. It's really going to be tough for a lot of these rookies. The only position for the rookies that it won't be that much of a factor is running back. But the receivers, it's going to hurt, and it's definitely going to hurt these quarterbacks. And, Ryan Fitzpatrick was solid last year. Tua, you give him some time to learn. Same thing with Herbert. So I would probably lean towards Tua first, but
I mean, that's a great point about missing camps and OTAs and things like that as a rookie, because you are playing, you're learning a brand new playbook, you're learning a whole new system. I think maybe, if it's a team where you've got a different system in place or a different scheme in place, then you're kind of at that same level as everybody else. But that's not happening for Tua or Herbert. So I think you make a great point there. Same thing with the wide receivers here. I mean, so we'll move further down here. Derek Brown, I don't think anybody begrudges the Panthers on that. Isaiah Simmons to the Cardinals was a solid move. C.J. Henderson for the Jaguars. I mean, again, when you lose.
He looked when they picked him.
What's that?
He looked thrilled when they picked him. Did you see his reaction?
No, I didn't. What was his reaction?
He had his head down.
Really?
Yeah.
He's like, oh, no.
Jacksonville, damn it. Everyone wants to leave there.
All right. He's like, that's right? The Florida Gator, local boy. Everybody, all the fans are like all over it. And Henderson's like, that's hysterical. That's actually something like that's good to know, because when you talk about when the rookie contract comes up, what happens with that? Jedrick Wills goes to the Browns. That was a move we expected to see. Mekhi Becton to the Jets was great, and then now it comes through and it pops off, and this is where it all got crazy. And it's Henry Ruggs. So give me your thoughts here on Ruggs. We know he's fast, we know he's talented, but I mean, is this the same old Raiders just going for speed and could end up busting out?
Yeah, it feels like it. I was just stunned. Again, look, you want to take Judy, fine. You want to take Lamb, fine. But I just did not think it would be Ruggs here in this spot. From a fantasy perspective, though, he does go to a good spot. I mean, there's a lot of targets up for grab here. They really don't have a number one wide receiver. Tyrell Williams, Hunter Renfrow. I mean, Darren Waller, I think, is the top target in the passing game. I don't know how the hell he only scored 3 touchdowns last year with the season he had, but I think there's some positive touchdown regression for him. But he does go into a good spot for targets here, where they can get him the ball. And that's the thing. People think of him as kind of only a deep threat, but he caught a lot of short passes last year and did things after the catch. So he's actually in a better spot for fantasy than CeeDee Lamb.
He is, and then let's hit that. So you've got Ruggs with Vegas, you've got Lamb in Dallas, and that's clogged up, and you got Jerry Jeudy, who's obviously we know that Elway was targeting him in a major way, but plays second fiddle to Courtland Sutton. So the question is, do they split the targets there? Or does Courtland Sutton, is he still the big guy for that team?
I think Sutton is still the guy, but you would move him down. He finished, I think, wide receiver 14 last year, but if you go look, his numbers with Drew Lock were not as good. So a lot's going to depend here on Drew Lock. I mean, they've put weapons around him now, and I think they're trying to figure out if he is their future. We're going to find out this year. So, it could have been a better spot for Jeudy, but there are targets there. They don't have anyone else opposite Sutton. They'll have Melvin Gordon that they'll pass to, and Noah Fant there, but it's not the worst spot for Jeudy, because there will be targets. I still think Sutton's the one. Judy's probably like low wide receiver 3, high wide receiver 4. Like, I don't see any of these receivers so far in the top 30. I just don't. None of them went to ideal spots where they can dominate the target share. And again, the lack of rapport with the quarterback. I mean, it's a big factor. Just, the quarterback seeing how you run your routes. You see how the ball comes out of the quarterback hands. He figures out where you like it best. And they're not going to be able to do that. And I think that's going to be a problem.
Further down, Jalen Reagor goes to the Eagles at 21. That's actually a really good spot for him in Philadelphia. And then Justin Jefferson at 22 from Minnesota. They trade up to grab him. I think that's these two guys, to me, obviously in better spots from a fantasy perspective than the aforementioned 3. So the question is like, if you're doing a draft, let's say you're doing a 12-team fantasy draft, and did you return that email asking if you were joining the SiriusXM post-draft on Saturday?
I never got the email.
Oh, I should forward it to you. I think he needs more teams, but I think he should do it because I think that's really the question. There is like, when we see pre-free agency, post-free agency, pre-draft, post-draft, like where do you see these guys starting to go? Like, I mean, we talk about best player available through the first 4 or 5, possibly even 6 rounds of a fantasy draft. Do any of these guys make that grade?
No, not for me. They really don't. There's a lot of good depth at wide receiver. I'm in the middle of a draft right now, and none of these guys have gone yet. I think it's like the 6th round. So I'll keep tabs on that. But no, I just don't. Jefferson's definitely in a good spot, though, because the Vikings clearly need a receiver now. They were near the bottom in pass attempts last year. I don't think that will change much. This is a team that wants to rely on the run. But at the same time, their defense is taking a hit. So if their defense isn't as good, that could obviously help the offense maybe pass a little bit more. We'll see what the Vikings do in this draft here the rest of the way on the defensive side. But Jefferson is going to get the targets now. He played mostly out of the slot last year. 2 years ago, he didn't. So, Thielen obviously excels better in the slot. But if you look what the Vikings did last year, they rotated that slot. It was Diggs at times. It was Thielen at times. It was Olabisi Johnson at times. So, I mean, Jefferson obviously clearly excelled there. So you would think he would get most of the time in the slot. And we have seen Thielen be able to play outside. But yeah, Jefferson's definitely in a good spot. He probably, if I had to put him right now, I'd probably put him one of this group based on the opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Thielen for me, it's always been much better as a slot receiver than the outside, and it's just from a coverage standpoint. But I think, yeah, if Jefferson ends up working out of the slot a little bit more regularly, he's just he's going to see a slot corner, he's going to see a nickel corner on him, and I would love to see that. Couple of picks down there, Brandon Ayuk goes to San Francisco, so they grab Kinlaw. And boost that defensive line. That defensive line in San Francisco is going to be ridiculous. And then they grab Ayuk. Freakishly long arms on this guy. Like, freakishly. Like, I'm like borderline, the Fantastic Four, Mr. Fantastic with the big, ginormous wingspan from stadium to stadium. Is this a guy who interests you now, knowing that Kittle, still the number one target, Deebo Samuel, gets a strong share as well?
Yeah, again, a wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5. I think it really helps the NFL team more than fantasy. He's excellent after the catch, and you see what San Francisco is doing here. They're kind of playing to maybe the limitations of what they think of Garoppolo, but getting all these guys that can do something after the catch. They just want Garoppolo to get rid of it quick. Let Deebo do his thing. Let Ayuk do his thing. Kittle. I mean, all these guys, yards after the catch are tremendous. So, I mean, Kittle clearly is the top guy there. That's another guy that I'm waiting for to get an 8 to 10 touchdown season. I just don't know why he doesn't get the ball more in the red zone. So hopefully that's coming, although I probably won't have him on a lot of teams this year. But I did last year. He was falling in some of the drafts I was into the 4th round. I was like, all right, I don't like to take the tight end early. I mean, I have in the past. I used to do it Gronkowski, Kelsey, but not first, second round. But if like Kittle last year in a competitive league last year, he fell to me at 4-1. I'm like, all right, I'll take him. So I had him in a couple leagues. So he's still the top guy for me. I still like Deebo a lot. There's just not a ton to go around in this offense because we know how much they run the ball, and they ran the ball an insane amount last year. They jumped out to leads. I don't think that will occur again, but they still want to focus on the run. So Ayuk it's not great for fantasy.
And then further down there, skill position wise with fantasy impact for this year, the last pick of the draft or the round, Kansas City. I mean, everybody had DeAndre Swift pegged as the guy. They go Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He's not as big a player as Swift is, but I mean, dynamic speed, phenomenal pass catcher. He definitely fits the mold for an Andy Reid running back. Probably better than Damian Williams, I think. Give me your thoughts on this. Did you have that prop, by the way, the 0.5 running back? Did you go with the over?
Over, yeah. I thought there would be at least one, so I had it over a half. I love this fit, man. I mean, I'm so mad because I'm in a slow draft now, and the guy on the clock was 2 picks before me, and he waited till the draft ended. It took right after his player. And you know what? Good for him. You know what I mean? It sucks. I wanted him. I was hoping like somehow it made it back, but that's what happens. I knew this when I started the slow draft, that it's probably going to happen in the middle of the draft. And, sometimes you get lucky, but the guy got him in round 5. There's going to be a lot of hype on him. I see him moving up to round 3, even round 2. Now, the key is here, what's his role going to be? Because some people feel like, well, he's not going to be the full-time back. Well, Andy Reid's been a first-round pick on a running back. He never does that. And he even said he was told to watch some film, kind of similar to Brian Westbrook. Andy Reid said he's better. So they are clearly high on him. Damian Williams has been great in the playoffs. But the guy, I don't even think he had more than 100 carries in a regular season last year. I know going into last year he didn't. I don't think he hit over 100 last year. So 28 years old now, just hasn't held up over a whole season. Edwards-Helaire fits great into this system. He's going to catch a ton of passes. Definitely a lot of excitement. We'll see where some of the running backs go today, but right now you're taking him number 1, I think, in your rookie drafts. It's just a really good fit. And, they're not committed to Damian Williams, I believe, after this year. So you're going to see a lot of buzz built for him. And even if he doesn't say he gets 15 touches and most of them are in the passing game, he can still be efficient. He can catch 4 or 5 passes a game. So I love this, and you're going to see the hype build on him. I'm very interested to see where he goes in that post-draft. I'm going to say round 3 or 4.
It's very possible. Listen, I was so high on him. I thought the Bucs would grab him.
Me too. We both picked that when we did our Alarm After Hours thing. I guess you, me, and someone else, I think, had him to Tampa.
Yeah, I thought that was, which now puts DeAndre Swift more into Tampa's lap. So I guess the question is the running backs you're watching tonight? Obviously, it's DeAndre Swift, it's Jonathan Taylor, Zach Moss. What's that?
And Dobbins.
J.K. Dobbins, Zach Moss, even out of Utah. Where are you? Do you have ideas of where you would like to see these guys go?
Obviously Tampa would be great. I felt all along that Taylor's going to Pittsburgh. Connor has had injuries. So that was one of my predictions. Hopefully I get it right.
No faith in Benny Snell?
No. You do? You have faith in him?
You know what? Listen, Snell looked great when he was in college. He really did. And I don't think he really got a full opportunity in Pittsburgh. And I don't hate the guy. I'm not going to sit there and say that he's better than Jonathan Taylor. It would surprise me a little bit to see Pittsburgh make that move again, unless they think that, that Taylor is a must own for the future.
Yeah. So, again, there's a few teams up there that could take a running back. And obviously it's all about fit for the running back. Miami is still in the mix. I think some of us thought they might take a running back yesterday since they had 3 picks in the first round. They did it, but they could go with one today. I know they are high on Jonathan Taylor.
I know they're high on Jonathan Taylor, but they brought in Jordan Howard. So, using a pass catcher is probably a little bit more. I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe we'll have to see. Listen, they could end up. I don't know how much guaranteed money they were offering Jordan Howard. That could bounce away in a heartbeat. What about some of the quarterbacks who you're looking at for tonight? Jalen Hurts, Jake Fromm, Jacob Eason. You think Hurts is going somewhere early in the second round?
I think he can. I know there's some risk with him, but his ability to run, I think it would be definitely appealing for fantasy. New England is a team to watch for him. So that would be the quarterback that I look at for today. It's not a great quarterback class.
No, it's not a great quarterback. It's a building quarterback class. But yeah, Hurts. I've depending on where he lands, I was kind of thinking, why wouldn't the Colts take a stab at that early in the second round? It's that early second round that actually, it's really kind of funny when you look at it. Let me just pull up that round here. Colts could do it. I know you like Stafford, but I could still see the Lions, with a plan for the future there. Patriots are definitely a possibility. Even a team like Carolina, where I know they got Teddy Bridgewater on a 2-year deal, but it's Teddy Bridgewater. And this isn't like the be all end all. he's not the kind of guy that you like really you push for as a franchise QB.
Oh yeah, I don't think he is either. I was kind of surprised that they brought him in and thought he was the answer. And let's not forget, we still have Cam Newton and Jameis Winston out there too.
That is true. That is true. Yeah, you had talked about that we were talking about that with the Chargers as a possibility. Yeah, Colts definitely. Man, where would they go?
Pittsburgh for Winston, right? I mean, Roethlisberger's 38. Always got to worry about injuries. He got hurt last year, and he goes down. You bring him in.
Yeah, Pittsburgh's a good spot. What about Washington? Because I don't necessarily know if Ron Rivera is really all that into Dwayne Haskins, and I mean, reuniting with Cam. I don't think they had friction between each other. It was more Cam just being Cam.
Yeah, it's a possibility, especially if that price drops, and you got to think it does now. So, yeah, those are two things we're going to have to watch post-draft to see what happens with those quarterbacks.
Should be very, very interesting. Now, wide receivers we're looking at tonight, there's some good names on the board here. T. Higgins, Denzel Mims, Laviska Shenault, Michael Pittman Jr., KJ Hamler. Some really interesting names there. Do you have a favorite?
Probably T. Higgins. Would be one of them, and Mims. So, yeah, there's definitely going to be receivers going tonight. Your Jets could be in the mix, I think, for one of them, too.
My Jets definitely are in need for a wide receiver. Yeah, I kind of liked – I thought that that Hamler might be an intriguing option. If you leave Crowder in the slot, you let Hamler's speed play on the outside, and then you've got – your boy Perriman. I know how much you love him.
Well, it's not that. It's when I wrote the article, it was. Did you see his draft price? And it still hasn't gone up.
I have not seen his draft price. It's fine if it hasn't gone up.
It's like 12th, 13th round, man. Like at that point, especially in a best ball draft, I'm taking that. He's a deep threat that can put up some big games. If you look at what he's done the last 2 years, I mean, he's been good on a per play basis. And I know it took injuries for Evans and Godwin, but when he's been given the opportunity, he's done pretty well. So he could play like that Robbie Anderson role. And, Robbie Anderson was inconsistent for where he was drafted, but you take Robbie Anderson in the double-digit rounds if you can get him, and Perriman could put up similar numbers if depending on who they add. But I don't think any of these receivers are going to severely cut into his target share.
No, I don't either. I don't either. What about the Texans? Do the Texans have too many other holes that they can't address wide receiver with one of these guys? They've got a relatively early pick in the second round as well.
Oh, I don't see them going wide receiver with what they have now. After trading for Brandon Cooks, they got Cooks, Stills, Cobb, and Fuller. So my guess is they could go on the defensive side.
Yeah, okay. What about other landing spots for some of these wideouts? Anybody in particular you think is in dire need of some wide receiver help? Jaguars, Bears.
Colts. I think the Colts could at 34.
Oh, so yeah, they could. I still feel like the Colts are going to be in the market for a quarterback. I really do.
34?
Listen, if you're worried that the Patriots are going to take Jalen Hurts, I mean, Hurts is the guy that you want because he's probably the closest to being ready or to not play. I mean, how long is Phillip Rivers going to roll here? I mean, he looked terrible last year. It looked like the arm strength was softening up. I mean, what happens if he plays a year or two and he's like god awful again? Then where are the Colts sitting now?
Yeah, they worry about it either later in the draft or next year. I think they take receiver and maybe they have 2 picks, I believe, too, right? In the early on,
34 and 44.
Yeah, so I think they take a receiver with one of those picks.
All right, okay. Tight ends that you're watching for tonight? You got any interest in this tight end class?
No, I don't. There were some rumors going around that Cole Kmet could go in the first round. He didn't. I guess maybe New England could take a tight end, but I'm not excited about this class of tight ends here. And especially for fantasy, we never really pick any rookie tight ends. And in this class, no way.
We're being produced by John and Pemba today, who is lighting up my G chat right now with Cole Kmet and numerous exclamation points. So I'm guessing that that the Patriots contingency would like to see Cole Kmet land in a Pats uni. All right, let's before we get out of here, Adam, because we've got a long night ahead of us tonight, and folks, you can catch Adam and myself. We are on the live stream throughout the entire evening. Coverage starts at 7 p.m. Eastern. Adam will be running that first live stream with a couple of different hosts on there, like Jeff Ratcliffe and Bob Harris and Jen Piacenti. Then I'll be moving in on the for the second hour with Brad Evans and Michael Fabiano, and then Adam and I get reunited later on in the night. So the question that I posed to everybody on Twitter, Adam, answer for me here. Who took the biggest dump on the first round of the NFL draft? Was it the guy in Mike Vrabel's house, or was it the Packers on Aaron Rodgers with this trade up for Jordan Love?
Yeah, I think it's the Packers, man. I don't understand it. Again, Rodgers has not said that he's going to retire anytime soon. He's 36 years old. We see quarterbacks now that can play to 40. We know Rodgers is not the same, but still, this is a team that was in the NFC Championship game last year, won 13 games. I think they overachieved in a major way. And then you send a message by, instead of getting him a weapon on offense, when he made the comments the other day, like, yeah, we haven't taken an offensive skill position player in the first round in 15 years. It'd be nice to get one. And then you go out and get his backup for the future, and like
his replacement.
How long is he going to sit too? Like, if you're making that pick, you think he's playing in the second or third year. Otherwise, why do it? So very perplexing. I don't know what's going on there, but yeah, Rodgers has got to be mad when there's some good wide receivers in this class, and he clearly needs another wide receiver on this team. I mean, year after year, we see them trying to bring in these guys, and they don't work. I know Alan Lazard was pretty good last year, but you got to get someone opposite Devontae Adams, and they didn't do it. So you got to think Rodgers is very unhappy, and I'm just stunned that they did it. I really am. It doesn't make sense to me. You have to decide as a team: are you in it to go now, or are you building for the future? We see Miami's building for the future. Got all those draft picks. Now we'll see if they can have it work out. Tampa Bay, all in, going for it now. Dallas, going for it now. Green Bay, with Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback, you should be going for it now, unless they feel that they're not as good. And if that's the case, then Rod's not going to be happy about that. So it's very weird, the philosophy they employed here.
And they've got him on a 4-year deal that he signed in 2018. So Rodgers has 2 more years left on that deal for $134 million. I don't know what was guaranteed as far as that goes, but I mean, the dude's only 36 years old.
Get rid of him, it's a huge cap hit. Like, say they decided to get rid of him, I think it's a huge hit against the cap with a lot of dead money. So I don't see that happening.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting one. They don't
want him back after next year.
What's that?
I guess they don't want him back after next year. They're like, you're leaving, so this is the guy that's replacing you.
Right, it's gonna be nasty. Any bold predictions for tonight, or anything you want to see as we move into the second round?
Obviously Tampa Bay to get a good running back, which I think they will, and that'll definitely help for fantasy. That's kind of a missing piece there. A guy that can catch passes from Brady. Obviously, I want to see Dallas draft defense. I mean, they should. I don't care what wide receiver falls or what running back falls. I think this time they'll go, all right, we have to fill a need.
Well, you don't touch the podium for until the 51st pick overall. So you got a little ways to wait. Folks, give Adam Ronis a follow on Twitter if you don't already. If you don't already, I don't understand what you're doing on Twitter in the first place there. Give a follow at Fantasy Alarm. Hit us up on our YouTube page. Type in Fantasy Alarm into the search box. Check out all the videos. There are a ton of reaction videos last night from John and Pemba, Dan Malin, Jen Piacenti, Justin Fensterman. Just great stuff all around from the whole crew last night. So that's all available to you over on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter, I said. And yeah, how about that Facebook page, right? FantasyAlarm.com. Big night here for night 2. of the NFL draft. So come and find Adam and I a little later on this evening. Also, tune in 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern. It's me and Jim Bowden on the Fantasy Alarm Show. You know, Jimmy Hot Takes, all sorts of excited about CeeDee Lamb. Will he actually be eating lamb chops with mint jelly on the show? I kind of feel like he might be. So that's going to do it for us here today on Fantasy Alarm Sports Talk. Big thanks to John and Pemba, our producer. For Adam Ronis, I'm Howard Bender, and we'll catch you next time.